You're listening to the Academy Podcast, presenting an innovative curriculum for personal growth. Sit in on exclusive conversations with influential people as they share the secrets that made them the front runners in their industries. Now here are your hosts, Austin and Kagia.
Welcome to the Academy with Austin and G. I'm the G. He's the Austin. We're here to talk about leadership today, man.
Yes,
got a leadership specialist in the house.
Guru.
So he's in the background. So we can talk about leadership. Maybe he can straighten us out. But
yeah, go ahead.
I'll talk about it first.
Yeah.
Because old school says that the man supposed to be the leader in the house.
Okay.
Now, in my house, I get told what to do all the time.
That sounds accurate.
And I find myself saying the words, "You ain't my mama."
Okay.
In my house.
You say it in a joking way, right?
Sometimes.
Okay.
You ain't my mama.
Okay.
Yeah, man. So what I think it's curious, man, that society, I guess, used to say, I know that's not as common now, that
right.
The man wear the pants and all this kind of stuff. But man, I find, man, that the woman and when I try to put my foot down, half the time, man, I be wrong.
Yeah.
I'm right sometimes. I ain't an idiot, but half the time, I have to face the fact that if I would have listened to the woman in the first place, we'd be better off now.
It's a rarity when you're right when you put your foot down, but it's sweet when you're right, though, isn't it? I ain't gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie, but this doesn't happen a lot. My wife's always right.
But can I say this?
Yeah.
When I am right, she'll twist it. So when it comes back up, it's like she agreed in the first place. And I'm like, no, because you said, and she was like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Or she'll say, you didn't say it like that the first time. Something like that.
I don't get my credit.
She'll discredit your win. You'll win with the asterisk on the side. Yeah,
absolutely.
That's what happened.
Absolutely. I'm San Antonio Spurs.
Yeah, no. Listen, I just think that, as being a leader of the home, God calls us to be the priest. But, man, we know what it is. I'm not going to lie, man. I know what it is, man. I do. And I do want my wife to, and she does respect me as a leader. I can say that about my wife. But I also respect my wife as the woman that she is. I can't wait till my wife makes more than me. I was on a conference a couple of weeks ago with I believe it was Eric Thomas. He was like, man, he worked so hard. He told us what to quit a job. And I was like, yo, man, I want the type of leadership that where my wife, when she makes so much more money, I want to quit my job, man, so I can just support her, man, as a leader. But yo, we got leadership today, and this is of course the Academy Podcast, a curriculum for growth, and I'm excited for our next guest, man. We got somebody on here who knew me before I was a pastor, man. I was a young lad in the game, but I'm so excited. We got the senior pastor of the Relove Church out there in California. He is a leadership guru. We got Seth Yelorda in the building.
What's up,
Seth, man? How are you, man?
Well, I'm good. We here, man.
Yo,
honored to be here. Thank you, fellas.
Yo, we thank you, man, for being on. Seth, man, tell us, man, who is the leader of your home, man? Tell us.
Yo, man, I wasn't sure where this conversation was going, man. When you started off talking about leadership in the home, I was like, oh, yeah, I might be on the wrong podcast, brother. You trying to set me up. All these ladies out here talking about they run this stuff. Yo, man, we got a partnership in my household, brother.
That's it. Partnership.
We got a partnership.
I love that, man. I love it.
It's what we call situational leadership. And most of the time, she's the one in charge running things, brother. I just support.
Absolutely.
You just support. You just tech support, man. It's tech support.
Just support.
So, for those that don't know, Pastor Yelorda has pastored really, on two sides of the country. You're out in the South. You were out in South Central for a little bit. Now you're in California. You've been doing really well. But man, Seth, we really want to talk about you kind of got into your leadership bag. That kind of start after Mount Rubidoux. Kind of talk to us about, what you're doing now. Not just, you're not just, you're a great pastor. You pastor a great church. But we really want to talk about your leadership stuff, man. What made you kind of get into that bag?
Yo, man. So I had pastored Mississippi, started there, pastored some churches in Chattanooga, Tennessee, came out here to Cali, to Riverside with Mount Rubidoux with Mike Kelly. And it was probably somewhere around the Chattanooga. In fact, it wasn't when I was in Chattanooga. When I was in Chattanooga pastoring Orchard Park, I decided to go to Southern and get my MBA. And when I went to Southern to get my MBA, I went because I recognized that, you know what, I really want to know how to, run a church. Like, I want to know the business side of it. Like, I know in seminary in Oakwood, they teach you the spiritual side of pastoral ministry, but they don't really teach you like the business side of actually how to run a church on the business side. And so I was like, no, I really want to increase my business skills. And so I went to Southern, got my MBA, and was able to implement a lot of the things I had learned from that program, both in Orchard Park, which is in Chat, and at Mount Rubidoux. In fact, me having my MBA was really what opened up the door for me to serve at Mount Rubidoux, because I stepped in as the executive pastor. Oh, wow. And Mike Kelly was like, yo, I want someone who can really come and kind of help us with our systems, our structure, our processes, kind of like the business side. And so I came out and was able to do that. And it was while I was at Mount Rubidoux that I began to realize with like stunning clarity that like you could have your spreadsheets and your org charts and you can have all of your business policies and all of that stuff in order. But like, if you don't have a healthy culture, if you don't have healthy leaders, like nothing will get done. Right. Literally is what John Maxwell says. Everything rises and falls with leadership, not with spreadsheets, right? Not with, org charts. It's with leadership. Right. And so that's when I really started to think, you know what, how can I as an individual become a better leader? But then how can I also help other pastors who are trying to transform the culture of their organization? How can I help them become better leaders? Because there's a gentleman by the name of Shine. Last name is Shine. He is pretty much like the culture guru. Like he is that. He's in academia, Edgar Schein, and he has written tons of books about how to transform culture, how to change culture. And something that he says that leadership and culture are two sides of the same coin, or opposite sides of the same coin. Mm-hmm. That if you want to change your church's culture or your organization's culture, it like starts with leadership. Right. And so that's what really got me into it, recognizing that if we're going to have a healthy culture, if we're going to reach our goals, we have to have a healthy culture. And if we're going to have a healthy culture, it starts with leadership. And so that's kind of where I started kind of really dialing into, okay, what makes a high level leader? What are some of the practices? How can individuals grow and develop as leaders? And that just kind of, piqued my interest, man. And I've been diving deep into it ever since.
Well, let me ask you this. When you started learning about leadership on that kind of level, was the things that you learned just confirming what you already knew, or were you learning things that were the aha moments that just kind of changed everything for you?
Yeah, a little bit of both, honestly. So, I mean, all of us, we're pastoring, we're serving in churches. And so we're in it. You know what I'm saying? Like we're knee deep in our church trying to lead it. And so we are leading our church. And so just by way of you being a pastor, like your leadership, even if you're not being intentional about it, like you are indirectly growing as a leader on some level. Me studying leadership, it really just started giving me the tools and the know-how and really putting the language to what I was kind of already doing and kind of reaffirming what I was already doing, but also kind of showing me here are some other ways that you can go about actually leading an organization effectively. So there were definitely some aha moments that I experienced along the way as it relates to leadership, without a doubt.
I think that's good, because you kind of made a point that we went to Oakwood University, for those who are listening, in Huntsville, Alabama. It was definitely more theory and not practice. And I think that needs to be stated, again, because when I came out of Oakwood, I did not know how to lead a church. I just didn't, what I'm saying? I think we didn't have enough I just felt like we didn't have enough hands on. I'm thankful for the class we did have. And so I think that getting into church, you do a lot of leadership just on the fly. Me and G were talking about that yesterday, preparing for the pod, that some of that stuff is just like, we got to learn as we go. The mistakes that we made, we found out some good stuff. But with you, in terms of learning this stuff and learning it now and having the tools that's needed, how has the way you pastored, what has been some of the results of you kind of getting this leadership training that you have now?
Oh, man. I mean, I think the biggest result is confidence, right? So for me, it's like when you step into a space, if you don't feel like you belong in that space, or you don't feel like you know what you're going to do in that space, then you're going to kind of like the decision that you make and how you navigate that space, it's going to be impacted by your approach and kind of what you bring to the table, your thought process about it. But when you step into a space confident, like, you know what, I know what I'm doing. I've been here. I'm called to be here. I have the tools I need to get the job done. It just brings a confidence, a swag, and not in a cocky way, not in an arrogant way, but just like, you know what, I know what I'm doing. And so for me, I think one of the biggest aha moments that I got through studying leadership and researching leadership is something I talked about on social media, is that leaders are actually made, right? For some reason, through Oakwood, through undergrad, through seminary, I just had this thought in my mind that leaders are born, right? Primarily born. And that because leaders are born, unless you have a charismatic personality, unless you have this super high intelligence that's like off the charts, right? Unless you have like this super, this extraterrestrial, supernatural memory that you can remember everyone's name. Like, unless you have these natural traits, then you're going to reach like a lid with your leadership. And something I began to realize through studying is like, no, like, yeah, there are some components that you are born with, some personality traits that you are born with that might help you lead. But by and large, most of your leadership development is actually something, or most of your leadership skill is something that is developed. And so if you go to the gym, you run, you exercise, you get on the machine, the treadmill, if you work out, you're going to get healthier. Well, if you get in the gym of your leadership development, you will actually become a better leader. And so I just started approaching my board meetings, my business meetings, my elders meetings, my staff meetings, my preaching, funeral, I started approaching all of it from a standpoint of how can I leverage this opportunity to grow as a leader? What does it mean? Like, what does it actually mean to be a leader? Kind of where am I currently? And then what steps do I need to take to actually reach where I feel like I need to be? What level I need to be at in order to lead this church forward effectively?
Right.
All right, you dropped way too many.
Go ahead.
Way too many good points. I keep wanting to jump in, man. I'm ready to jump in.
Let's go.
Can I go back about you said something about, just having attributes of leadership, being born with some attributes of leadership. So all of us may be born with different attributes. And so I'm no mechanic by any means, but I do have a tool case in my garage. And so there are certain tools for certain things. I don't use a hammer when I need a screwdriver. And so is there some help that you can give us knowing which one of our tools, which one of our traits, which one of our personality traits or gifts should be best used in leadership? Because some of us, we may be using the wrong thing. I might be using a hammer when I should be using something else. So,
I mean, honestly, so it really depends on how you view leadership, right? So there is the theory out there that it's and it's not to get like super technical, but there's like the trait-based leadership theory. And trait-based leadership theory basically says that there are a core set of traits that you get from your parents that you inherit that will kind of give you an advantage as a leader, right? And so some of those traits are like extroversion. So they suggest that if you're extroverted, that somehow you being extroverted is going to give you a leg up on your ability to lead well. Another one of those traits is openness to change, right? And so if you are open to change, then somehow that's going to naturally give you a leg up on leadership, right? Or another one is agreeableness, right? And so if you're agreeable, right, that somehow leads to an advantage. And so that's really like the trait-based leadership theory, which I think, obviously there's some research out there that validates that. I think there's some truth to that to a degree. But what I really try to advocate is not so much trait-based leadership theory, but more so state-based leadership theory, which basically suggests that there are certain behavioral characteristics that you can manifest that actually lead to impactful leadership, right? And so one of those behaviors, right? And just to differentiate between a trait and a behavior, a trait is something that you necessarily inherited. It's a personality, you were born with it. A behavior is something that you do, right? And so a behavioral based leadership theory basically says, you know what, if you really consider people, if you come into your, let's say, your board meeting, and rather than treating the board meeting as one big group, if you come around and you individually address each person and you ask them, how are you? How is your wife? How is your husband? How are your kids? And you individually consider people, not treating them like a group, but treating them like individuals, that will increase your ability to lead them well. Right. Wow. Another one is your ability to inspire, to cast a compelling vision. That if you are able to articulate with stunning clarity a vision for your organization that resonates with your followers, that will increase your ability to lead them well. Right. Those aren't things that you're necessarily born with. Right. Those aren't traits. Those are behaviors that you're modeling. And so what I try to do when I'm in my leadership coaching or talking with individuals is I really try to outline for them, here are a list of behaviors that research suggests that if you do these behaviors, it will lead to impactful leadership. Now, let me take an assessment of you, where you are as it relates to these behaviors. And let's see which one of these behaviors you have a track record of doing, which one of these behaviors might be more difficult for you to manifest or to engage in. And then let's create a plan to actually help you manifest and engage in these behaviors more often than not. Right. And so it's really, I mean, to a degree, it's situational, but by and large, there are, you know, depending on who you talk to, there are a set of 10, 12, maybe even more behaviors that people say, hey, if you manifest these behaviors, it's going to lead to high impact leadership.
Yeah.
Leadership outcomes. Let me say it like that. High impact leadership outcomes. That makes sense?
Yeah.
I'm looking at G because he want to jump in. G, jump in again, man. What you got?
Absolutely, dude. I don't ever like to ask 3 questions in a row.
I know
because we are a team here, and so I'm holding back, Doc. I'm holding back my question, but you know, you brought up Saul, man, and I'm thinking about you talking about the fact that well, you didn't bring up Saul. I was thinking about Saul in the biblical account that he stood ahead. Taller than everybody else. So everybody kind of thought he was a great leader. And so when you say it's not necessarily the charisma and things like that, I'm thinking like, but don't they kind of got a head start if somebody has like, I'm thinking about a friend of mine, Raymond Johnson. He's a tall guy. His voice sounds like he's the midnight DJ ushering in the slow jams. You know, he just sounds, and he's tall, and it's like, man, I sound like Kevin Hart, and I'm short, and so it's like this dude got a head start on me, man.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I mean, we can't deny the reality that there are certain characteristics that people might attribute to leaders, right? And so if you take a survey of 1,000 people and you say, you know, describe your ideal leader, they might say tall, dark, handsome, right? Charismatic, good hair, right? Whatever that means. Like they might actually list out and say, this is what they call the prototypical leader image, right? That when we think of leader, this is the image that comes to our mind. And so if you have someone that fits that prototype, then that person to a degree may have a head start as it pertains to leading effectively. But that doesn't mean that they're going to be an effective leader, because we can all point to some tall, dark, and handsome people who are not effective leaders.
Right.
So that might put you on first base, but it's not going to bring you home.
Oh, right. Yeah, right. And I think it's a good point, and it goes right into my question. Doc, talk to us about and you just mentioned one of them, about some of the misconceptions of leadership. Like we just kind of assume because they look the part, they talk the part, they got to be it. But what are some misconceptions that you think about leadership that's out there?
I mean, the first one, which I addressed earlier, is that leaders are born, not made. Like, I think that's a major misconception. I think if you can fundamentally understand that leaders are made and that leaders can develop, I think that shift in your mind will yield dividends for your own development. Because if you feel like there's no hope for you, right, or that you're at the glass ceiling, then you're not ever going to even try to develop, right? If I feel like, you know what, I'm not a runner, I'll never run a marathon. Like if I have that mentality, then I won't even try to do it, right? But if I have the mentality that, you know what, no, I can run the marathon, I can go a distance. I haven't done it yet, and it's going to take me a lot of work to get there.
Right.
But if I train and work hard enough, I can eventually achieve that goal. And so for me, that's one of the biggest misconceptions. Another one that I think is something that I think really affects many of us is our idea of what leadership is. That leadership means you listen to me. That leadership means I'm in charge. That leadership means I have the last say so, right? The leadership means I make all of the decisions. That leadership says I'm the smartest person in the room. I'm the most articulate in the room. Yeah. And I think to a degree, that's not what leadership is, right? Leadership is your ability to lead a group of individuals to accomplish an objective. And while some of those things might be indirectly related to leadership, really leadership is really about service. It's about you being able and being willing to serve your organization and to serve the people that are placed within your charge. And so you don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You don't have to be the most articulate, right? You don't always have to have the final say so, right? You don't have to always have the best ideas. I like how John Maxwell described leadership. He described it in this way. He said, leaders at their core are individuals who see more, and more before. Wow. Right? He said, leaders are individuals that if you're in a group of individuals, the leader is that person who sees more than the average person, and they see more than the average person before anyone else sees what everyone else sees. So they see more, and they see more before. And so for me, the essence of leadership is you being able to look out and say, you know what, I see some things coming on the horizon. I see some things that might affect us negatively or positively. Hey, what do you guys think? How should we address this? What are your opinions about this matter? How are we going to change our structure, our systems, our processes, our programs in order to meet what's coming up? To me, leadership is not about you always having to set the agenda and to run the meeting and to be in charge. I think leadership to a large degree is you just being willing to say, you know what, guys, this is where we're trying to go. Now, how do you feel is the best way for us to get there? Right. And to be more of a facilitator. Now, obviously, there are going to be times when you have to say, okay, yeah, we've heard all of your opinions, and you might be in that position where you have to make the final say so. But that at its core is not what leadership is about. Leadership is about influence. We know that leadership is influence, and how you influence those people, it varies from church to church, context to context, and organization to organization.
Yeah.
So in other words, by any means necessary, if there's a goal that you're trying to get to, some of us want to get there. You know, we want to win the championship, taking the last shot. We don't want Steve Kerr to win the championship. We want to win the championship with our hand up in the air, having hit the last shot with Byron Russell falling on the ground. Yeah. But if you win the championship, you win the championship. And you're saying leadership doesn't have to take the last shot. It just got to win the championship.
Right. Leadership needs to be able to define what winning is. Right. So you put a team of 10 people in a room, is winning hitting the last shot or is winning scoring the last touchdown? Like, it's the job of the leader to describe or to define the terms of the game. Right. So if you're the leader, you need to be able to say, hey, we're playing basketball and winning means this, versus, hey, we're playing hockey and winning means that. Right. Or we're playing, we're playing, we're swimming and we're doing the 4x4 and winning me. Like, you need to be able to define clearly for your community, for your team, what is winning. And once you define what is winning, it's the job of the leader to put the best people in the right positions in order to accomplish that goal. Yeah. And if that means you hit the last shot, then praise God. If that means that Sister Smith hits the last shot, well, then praise God. I don't care who hits the last shot. All I care about is that we get the championship.
Yeah, that's what matters. Yo, Seth, I got to ask you this because where you pastor now is not where you started. We talked offline about Mississippi, 3 churches. Dude, I just got to ask you this, in terms of, and I'll speak about my own leadership, coming into a situation where you're a young pastor, coming into the field where you have to lead people who are older than you, much older than you, who appear to be smarter than you? What's something your older self would tell your younger self to watch out for as a leader?
That's a good question. Pastoring people who are older than me, potentially smarter than me. I mean, honestly, I think that my initial knee-jerk reaction to that question is, why do I care if they're smarter than me? Like I want to surround myself. Ideally, I don't want to be this. Like if I'm the smartest person in the room, that might just be a problem. You know?
Yeah.
Like to me, if I'm talking to my young self, I would try to encourage my young self not to give into my own insecurities, right? And not to feel like I have to be the smartest person in the room or I have to have the most experience. Now, is there the expectation that a leader is going to be competent? Yes, right? Yeah. Leaders should be competent, right? But that doesn't mean I have to be the smartest person about everything in the room. And if there's someone in my congregation who knows finance more than I know finance, then I need to put them in a position to lead, to succeed and to lead, because I know that, man, if they win, then we win, right? And or if there's someone in my congregation who's really good at connecting with people and making people feel all warm and fuzzy, then I need to make them like my head, pastoral care elder person, right? Because if they can make everyone feel warm and fuzzy inside when they talk to them, then we're going to have a warm and fuzzy church, right? Like, so for me, it's not about me being able to do everything or me being the smartest person in the room as much as it is me equipping. So I would try, and it's so funny because I remember when I was pastoring my first district, I drove from Mississippi to Huntsville and had a conversation with Dr. Doggett, James Doggett. He was teaching at Oakwood at the time, obviously still pastoring Madison. And I had a conversation with him and I asked him that same question you asked me, like, what would you tell your young self? Like if you were going back, and his words to me were that I don't have to do everything. Yeah. Like he said, I don't have to preach the sermon, sing the song, do the prayer, collect the offering, run the board meeting, run the elders meeting. Like I don't have to do it all. And if there's someone else who can do it, and maybe they can't do it as well as I can do it, but if they can still do it and they can grow, then I need to put that person in a position to do it. Right. Yeah. And so I think that would be the same word I would tell my young self is like, yo, you don't have to do it all. Bro, I remember one of my churches, I was in Mississippi, Macomb, Mississippi, actually, small church, 25 people. And it was one particular Sabbath. It had to have been within my first 6 months, maybe to a year of being there. I showed up at the church that morning. I taught Sabbath school. I closed out Sabbath school. Then I and one other lady, we went back into the back room and we had prayer together. And then we walked out. You know how pastors, used to kind of walk out onto the platform. We walked out and I told everyone to please stand. And there were, 10, 15 people there. And so they stood. I then did the welcome. I led the praise and worship. I did the offering. I did the children's story for the one kid that was there. I preached the sermon. I did the appeal. I did the benediction. Like, bro, like I literally did everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I came away from that experience like, bro, like kill me now. Like I will never do this again. Right.
All right.
Because go ahead.
So I got out of it just last night. We had an elders meeting and I told my head elder when we were getting ready to get on, I said, listen, man, I came from a church where the head elder did the head meeting. Why am I here in y'all's elders meeting, man? I'm getting out of here. So about 5 minutes after, man, I excused myself from the elders meeting.
And never came back.
Man, No, I was tired, man. I was like, I don't need to get the elders meeting, man. So I appreciate that. But I got a real question for you, man. So, because we're talking about all the good stuff, man. Tell us about some bad leadership, man. Like, what does bad leadership look like?
Oh man, you don't need to look very far, brother. And I don't want to get political, man.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I don't know who's listening to this podcast, man. I don't want to get your viewer rating to drop, man.
No, it's good. Be real.
But man, I think it's obvious. It should be obvious what bad leadership is. I think at its core, it's everything that the opposite of what we talked about. You feeling like you have to be in charge, that you have to have the last word. And I've done that, like real talk. Like I've been that person specifically in my first district with my churches where I felt like, you know what, it's my way or the highway. Like, this is what we doing. I know what I'm doing, right? I'm fresh out of school. I got all these ideas. Yeah. And what's funny is like the people, they just sit back like, all right, you go ahead and do your thing, young man. Right. But I think at its core, bad leadership is not, I think I would define it one of two ways, or it's characterized by one of two ways. It's not listening and it's not learning. Right. I think bad leadership at its core is you are unwilling to really listen to people and to hear their feedback and to really make sure that they know that they feel heard and create an environment for shared meaning and shared expression and shared experience to really come out. So it's an unwillingness to listen to people. And it's also when you are not willing to learn. You're not willing to learn from the feedback that you get from people. You're not willing to learn from the mistakes that maybe others have made or that you have made. You kind of bury your head in the sand and you just feel like, you know what? I'm bullheaded. I'm going to ride this thing out. I'm going to stick with it. It's my way or the highway. I feel like those, and there may be more, but just kind of off the top of my dome, I feel like that's how I would, in short, characterize bad leadership. And then from that flows all types of negative outcomes, right?
All right.
That we can see.
So this is what I thought of just now. When I make a mistake as a leader, should I admit my mistake? Like, should I apologize to my kids when I realize that I was wrong and I overreacted or I was just totally off? Should I let like my church know when I've made a decision that didn't go the way I expected it to go? And when I think back on it, it was the wrong decision. Like how open should I be? Because people want to be able to trust their leader. So how open should I be about my mistakes, about my misleading?
Good question. Let me ask you a question. If one of your board members makes a mistake, do you want them to apologize and fess up to it?
Yes, absolutely.
For sure.
I mean, I don't know if I've ever remember that ever happening. I mean, I'm trying to picture it. I'm trying to picture that. What's that look like?
Concept to you? Answer the question. Absolutely. Yeah.
For sure. If your kid makes a mistake, do you want them to apologize for it?
Absolutely.
For sure. Right. And so what you're addressing is culture. Right. That's what you're addressing. Is what type of culture are we experiencing at our church, at our organization, in our family? What is the culture? Is the culture where we don't admit our mistakes, or is the culture where if I messed up, I confess, I make it right, I repent, whatever. Like that's really a culture thing. And if you're trying to create a healthy culture where yes, there's accountability, but yes, there's also grace. Right. And so if you drop the ball, we want you like, yo, guys, man, I thought it was going to go left. It went right. My bad. We shouldn't have done that. Right. Yeah. If you want to create that type of culture, then you as the leader have to model that. Right. You can't think that we're going to somehow have this healthy culture. And yet I, as a leader, am unhealthy. Right. I'm never wrong. I'm never wrong. I'm always right. Right. It's just not going to happen.
All right. I know I've been asking too many questions, but just to follow up to that, as you were saying what you were saying, I was thinking, so on the opposite end of that, can you explain the difference between I told you so and a teachable moment? Because when somebody else messes up and it's obvious, you have an opportunity to lead and to teach then, or you have an opportunity to gloat or whatever, So can you kind of explain how, as a leader, you deal with kind of teaching after somebody has done wrong or made a bad decision?
I think that the I told you so. You have to ask yourself, what's the desired outcome? Like, what do you want to accomplish in this moment? The person messed up. They come to you, they confess, or you catch them with their hand in the cookie jar. What is the desired outcome that you want?
Right.
Is the desired outcome that they learn from their behavior and they don't make that mistake again, and that the organization is better because of it? Or is the desired outcome that you prove to everyone else that you know what you're doing and that people should listen to you?
Right.
Right. And so if the desired outcome is, I want to make sure that people know I know what I'm talking about, then of course it's going to be, I told you so. You should have listened to me. I know what I'm talking about. But if my desired outcome is, no, I don't want to necessarily slap this person's hand, but I want to help them. Okay, how can we learn? How can we grow from this experience? Right. Because I know that, mistakes are inevitable. And actually, to a degree, I want to encourage people to make mistakes. Because by them making mistakes, they're at least trying, right? They're at least trying to innovate. Like obviously within reason,
Yeah.
Right. But I want to encourage people to try things. And if it doesn't work out, even if I said, hey, we should go left, and they say, well, I really want to try right. Okay, well, let's try right. And if it doesn't work out, then let's come back and let's recalibrate and see where we're going to go from here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think as leaders, you have to have that mindset of like, what is the desired outcome? And it shouldn't be, it's about me proving that I was right, right? It has to be, how can we leverage this as a learning opportunity for our organization? I was listening to a podcast this morning. Are you all familiar with Brendan Bouchard? That name sound familiar?
No.
Brendan Bouchard. I would encourage you to look him up. He's like a motivational speaker, author. Yeah. And he has a podcast. I was listening to his podcast, and he said something, man, that just hit me so hard. He said, the reason why people wrestle with disappointment, right? If you're someone who you feel like, man, I tried something, I'm disappointed. Right. He's like, the reason why people wrestle with disappointment is because they have a negative orientation towards learning.
Wow.
He said, if you have a positive orientation towards learning, then you'll never really be disappointed, because you'll even look at your mistake or your failure not as something to be disappointed over, but as something that, wow, like, okay, I just learned one way not to do it.
Right. Or this didn't work because of this.
Exactly.
Right.
And so when he said that, it just really hit me, even from a leadership standpoint, is that, I have a team that I lead, board members that I lead. And a lot of times, my team can get disappointed. We're not reaching our outcomes. We're not reaching our goals. Things are happening that that we didn't want or didn't plan for. And it just forced me to say, wow, like somehow we have to not so much reframe, but somehow we have to have a different perspective where we understand that it's not about disappointment, but it's really about our learning orientation. And you know what? Formula 409 is Formula 409 because he learned 408 ways it doesn't work.
Right.
And if he would have thrown in the towel on number 1 or number 2 and got disappointed, he would never, or she would never have developed this Formula 409.
Right.
That is, has blessed many people. So I know that's how I answer your question, man. It's you have to think about the outcomes, and it's all about learning. It's all about growth. And it can never be about you,
man,
as a leader.
Good. So Seth, man, I got to ask you this, first of all, how long you been in ministry, man? How long?
14
years in ministry. So we've been asking, and even though you're doing some leadership consulting now, we still asking a lot of pastors this, because you're a pastor. I just got to ask you, tell me first of all, what are some things that you're seeing, and we can even do it with what's happening with COVID. What are some things that you're seeing in young leaders that they're doing wrong that you're like, guys, pastors, leaders, change this quick? And then what's one thing you love that you see that young preachers are doing?
Mm-hmm. Dude, honestly, I wrestle with that question. I wrestle with it because, I think we have some phenomenal young pastors, and I honestly can't point to like, hey, you're doing this wrong, or young pastors are doing this wrong. Like, there's not one thing that like rises to the surface when I really try to process that. So rather than framing it like, hey, here's one thing you're doing wrong, I think what I would frame it as is, hey, here's one thing to make sure you do. Right.
Okay.
And I think that for me would be, is what I call EPC, right? It's an acronym, EPC. Make sure you do EPC. EPC is extended personal communion. Like, as a young pastor, I think the temptation is to think that, okay, you're fresh out of school, or you're in tune with the culture, technology. You got all these, these best ideas, your best practices, you're, on all the blogs, YouTube videos, great preaching. And I think a lot of times young pastors, and not too many, a lot of pastors in general, like we can tend to lean more into the culture and into what everyone else is doing and into, YouTube and best practices. And our EPC starts to grow a little thin and get a little dry. And so I would encourage young pastors, make sure that you prioritize spending extended periods of communion with Christ.
Yeah.
Right. That looks like you saying, hey, man, I'm taking Monday and Tuesday, and I'm just going to go out to the hill somewhere. I'm going to go to a retreat center. I'm going to check into a hotel, or I'm going to get away, and I'm just going to spend time, no phone, no social media. I'm just going to spend time with the Lord, right? Once a month, once a quarter, right? Extended personal communion, where it's just you and God. You have your journal, your prayer journal, and you're writing down, you're going on walks. You just really want to hear from God. Yeah. I feel like the culture gets us kind of caught up in the rat race of ministry. And we feel so compelled, or so much pressure to like do, and to have these results, that we can neglect like the most important thing, which is hearing from God. Right. Yeah. The voice of God, getting up early, and this is something I've struggled with all of my ministry, like getting up early, 5 o'clock, 4:30 in the morning, getting up, seeking the face of God. But like that is where your power comes from. That is where this is the thing, Austin, this is the thing. We asked a question about, what if there's someone in my church or my board who is smarter than me, right? They're smarter than me. And we think about it like, well, should I or should I not be the smartest person in the room? Like, I don't want you or anyone as a young pastor to think about who's the smartest person in the room. Like, what I want you to be concerned about is who is the most spiritual person in the room.
Yeah.
And as the pastor, like, I can't control intelligence, but I can control spirituality, right? And I need to make sure that when I show up, I am the most spiritual person in the room. Right. And that's not in a competitive, judgmental way, but it's just me saying, you know what? I'm not stepping into this place from the flesh. Like, I'm stepping into this place from the spirit. Like, right. I spent time with God. I've heard the voice of God. I have a clear line of communication. I have a direct line to God. I know he hears me. I recognize his voice. And as pastors, young pastors, what I would encourage you all to do is to cultivate that experience with God, so that when you step into a room, I got Sister Jones over there, and she's 80 years old and she knows the Lord, but I know the Lord too. Like, right. And not in a competitive way, right? But just like, that should be our concern as pastors, that when we show up, I'm showing up because I've just come down from the mountain and my face is aglow. Like, I have been with the Lord. Yeah. So that's what I would encourage, man, young pastors. I think young pastors are doing a phenomenal job, man, especially within the climate we're currently operating in, the political arena, the racial tension, just everything that's happening in the culture. I think young pastors are doing a phenomenal job at not hiding, not settling, but using their voice and using their platform to continue to advance and move the racial needle forward, so that we can experience, social justice in our communities and equity. I would encourage young pastors to keep doing that, keep using your voice, keep using your platform, but just make sure that you're not neglecting your EPC, right? Your extended personal communion, that you're actually connecting with God. Yeah, man, for sure.
Yo, listen, Seth, man, we appreciate you being on, bro. Before we go, got to ask you, man, you do leadership consulting. You go into churches and you turn them upside down, man. You are the fixer. I've heard, man, the guru. Talk to us, those who are listening, young pastors, old pastors, or leadership groups. How can we invite Seth Yelorda to come and bless our team? What's the process?
Oh man, dude, I'll be honored. My website, Vision Clarity 360. You can find me on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Man, just hit me up and we'll kind of set up a clarity call to see what's going on and to see if I can help. I may be able to help. I may not be able to help. I recognize that. God is really.
I might not be able to help you, man. But it's clarity.
If I can't, I know somebody who can. I know somebody.
Clarity call. I love that. Yeah.
I kind of want to get clear on what you're wrestling with, what you're battling, what your heart is for ministry and for God. For me, God has just really placed a burden on my heart for our church. I read, was in Matthew 16. He talks about, upon this rock, I will build my church and the gates of hell should not prevail against it. And literally, I feel like Jesus is saying to us, my church should be an unstoppable force.
Yeah.
In the community, in the world. But it just feels like far too often our churches are very stoppable, right? Like we hit these walls and tradition stops us and the saints stop us. And just like we spend, and to me, it's personally frustrating when I see individuals like the two of you and other individuals across the division who are just like high caliber, articulate, can bring the word, can lead your organization, can have a compelling vision. And it seems like you spend most of your energy trying to convince people. It's almost like Moses, right? Moses is high level leader. You got the cloud by day, pillar of fire by night, and you spend most of your energy, almost the best of your energy, fighting against people who don't want to go where you feel God is calling them to go. And so what I want to do, man, is I just really want to strengthen your arms and say, you know what? I've been there. I don't want you to waste your resources or cast your pearl before swine. Let me help you figure out a way that you can make what you feel God has put in your heart, how it can become a shared vision so that you're not fighting this, but you've actually created an army of people in your congregation who will be passionate and excited and motivated to move the kingdom of heaven's agenda forward in your local context, man. So that's what I love doing. That's what I excel at doing, and would be honored to serve anyone who's in need.
Yo, that's great, man.
That's great. Hey, G, before you wrap it up, I just got to say, man, Seth is a great preacher, communicator, leader, man. But a lot of people don't know. I follow him on social media, man. This guy's a bodybuilder. He's got a gym in his house that's better than the gym I have in my city. So Seth's got a home gym, man. He's bragging. He's throwing weight in the air, man.
That's COVID, man. That's COVID, brother.
Yeah, with his gym in the background, stuff looking all nice, man.
Hold on now. I got a question because some people do this. Now, I see some people on Facebook or wherever, posting pictures of themselves, no shirt on, before and after. Man, are you doing that, Doc?
I'm not doing that, brother. I'm not doing that, man.
He's not doing that yet.
I'm not doing that.
Because he knows. Yeah.
Hey, there's somebody tried to befriend me the other day, man. It's a guy without a shirt on, man, muscles bulging, man. I said, I'm not friending this guy. Put some clothes on.
Hey, well, look, man, Seth, we appreciate you, man. G, man, we went hard today, bro. How you feel?
Hey, we did, man. I feel great, man. And I wish that every leader and every would-be leader and every wannabe leader get a chance to listen to this. So if you are listening, we encourage you to share this with your friends and tell your friends to share it with their family. And come again next time here on the AP.
All right, take care, everybody. Peace.
Yes, sir.
You've been listening to the Academy Podcast with Austin and G. Hit the subscribe button and come again. You can find us on Spotify, iTunes, YouTube, and of course, Facebook. Oh yeah, and if you know someone who could use the information you just gained, take a minute to share. Much love from the AP.